Guys, KCTCG here. This is Ken with Corey.
Hello.
So we're going to be going over this week's Zorga's locals tournament, and this week's first round is going to be Zorga versus Lorenerol, with Zorga going second. And what's your opinion on this matchup as a player that
So
does both decks?
so I feel like Zorga applying early pressure, which is the way you should be playing Zorga, means Lorenorol doesn't really doesn't have breathing room to really play their cards out and find time to set up the or 4 or 5 order turns that really make the deck seem strong. And in addition, with the Lorenorol player, actually, with the Lorenorol player hitting that defensive, it means he actually found out a little bit one extra potential turn of finding his
Solstice.
stuff.
Solstice.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, is there ever a world where either deck realistically lives past the persona rod of the opponent, their turn four, so to speak?
I feel like Zorga can easily live through it if they are at lower amounts of damage going into it, like anywhere from 3 or below, and the lower in a role player doesn't really apply crit pressure with the crit order. And realistically, what people do is just restand rears and swing in. Meanwhile, Zorga is able to tank up quite well because one card in Zorga becomes 5. So meanwhile, Lorenorol actually has to commit completely to the board, and because of the nature of the deck or the nature of both decks, having orders doesn't really necessarily mean shield. But thanks to the new shield order in Zorga, you're able to find extra guard with the draw and have solid shield. Meanwhile, Lorenorol doesn't really have that access outside of the grade 2.
Ekno, correct?
Yes, that also needs you to be set up to begin with.
So, in this specific matchup, I remember this deck I remember this game very carefully. Correction. Um, I will say this right now. This game does lead to a deck out with one person losing. I will not say who. uh, so, th I'll be honest. Whenever if you ever play Zorga or play against Zorga, what you mill with this double dog, if you ever hit double dog on your turn two, actually tells you and tells your opponent if they know how to read into it. It tells your opponent how good your hand is. Do you agree?
Yeah, so generally the orders that you throw away are pretty telegraphed. But if you don't if you dump different orders than what is expected, most of the time your hand is very telegraphed to be, oh, the orders that I want to dump are already in my hand.
So here, when my opponent damages a lower narrow, God bless.
Yeah, yeah. I really think that like the Lorenorol Persona ride makes the solid turn from Lorenorol, the restanding turn. With the Persona ride, the turn actually becomes quite like threatening and threatens lethal a lot of the time.
So here, when my opponent drops the Elmer to guard, I feel that this is a big waste, especially when this card here is actually really strong late game because essentially it's like 25-30k shield by the time you have it set up.
Yeah, especially since he already discarded one for the ride on turn 1. Now, Ken as a Zorga player realizes half of the relevant shield in the deck is like half of the scaling shield in the deck is gone, and
Yeah.
a lot of that like defensive power that Lorna Roll desperately needs in this matchup is not really there.
So here he goes, riding that lower narrow like a boss. And instead of searching, here's what interests me because most lower narrow decks run 4 matter red runways. So as the lower narrow player in this call, do you think calling it from hand is actually the play, or do you think calling it from the deck is better?
I feel like if he's playing multiple, calling from the deck is usually better, um, because this way you don't reveal any cards in your hand.
Now, this
Uh,
card was drove check, so um,
oh,
normally you can keep track of cards your opponent drive checks, especially memorable ones like something game changing like Runway.
mm, yeah, because it was drove check and you could technically cycles. I think calling it from hand is fine, but calling one from deck could also just get you a thinner deck. Deck compression is actually relevant in a matchup like this where you plan to like triggers make a big difference in terms of guard values on both sides because they actually have a lot of cards that are dead shield and that 10k can actually mean the difference of like living or just getting your face rolled in.
So here, this guy clearly doesn't know Zorg as much. I had to explain why the order is able to guard for so much.
uh yeah, so in this situation the Lorenorol player pretty much used his version of the order early on for a whole 10k shield, while Ken used it to guard like an actually threatening column from the
Yeah.
Vanguard.
So here we have, it's actually a funny enough, this is a question someone asked me very recently. What happens when you malice into the Nightmares card? And actually, what happens is, depending which one you can play from hand, is where it goes at the end of during resolution. So if you play Malice first from hand, the order ends up in the soul. However, if you play the Nightmares first, it gets bound. Yeah, bound before you go into soul. So here I'm
Yeah, so how that works is pretty much the card's ability itself states where the card will go, and because Alchemy Magic treats both cards as the card being played, then the card in your order zone will go to where the card goes to first from the first card played from your hand determines where it wants to go.
So here we do the amazing ability of Zorga to have free units come out. The Wandering Prison Dragon. And yeah, this card has, on release, has always been a cornerstone of the Zorga deck. This card gives Zorga so much pressure and so much consistency that it's just a really good card.
Yeah, so the thanks to the prison dragons, now you're actually able to fulfill the power fantasy of Zorga, which is turning like a few cards into full armies, and not they're not just like random beat sticks that exist. To these dragons come out with crit thanks to the free power that the deck gains. The numbers are really threatening and usually require a few cards to guard with. And at this point, um, while he did hit a defensive,
Double
uh,
defensive.
double defensive, uh, with I believe active heal,
Yeah, he
uh,
did.
he uh, he would if that didn't happen, I would personally really want to have the grade 2 shield girl ready for later turns where now that you know the prison dragons what they do, you're gonna expect to get it like for them to keep showing up and keep showing up because that's kind of how the deck applies pressure now.
Oh yeah. So here is the turn that I find Lorenorol most annoying. Is their first turn Persona Ride. First turn they're able to Persona Ride, and he's smart to play the Winter Song, which means he's gonna apply a ton of pressure, and also means that all my perfect guards or sentinels are turned off, which is actually why I perfect guarded his first grade 3 attack. Do you personally agree with this, or do you think that I wasted a perfect guard there?
I think perfect guards are pretty dead in Lorenorol after the Winter Song starts showing up. So I personally agree with it. Like I think it's perfectly reasonable, especially since now you actually need as many cards as you can with shield value, and then with the PG you're able to just discard dead shields. Hopefully later in your hand you have relevant shield to guard with. So right
So,
here,
mhm.
the Lorenorol player has the counter charge and then the ability to the counter charge booster and commits three attackers pretty much or two more attackers. So this is the full five attack
Yeah,
turn.
this guy was a little bit new to the game. Keyword a little bit new. He tried to restand the booster. Um,
Mm.
so Fractal only stands units based on how many are face down at the moment. Not after it's face down. And also,
Oh,
this is 3 live heals, by the way.
that is third live. Okay, so that is four live heals shown in 2 turns. I I can see why
So,
this game is gonna, as you
so,
said, go to deck out for
so
somebody. This
also,
game is gonna drag out now.
uh, uh, in that moment, if people actually noticed, I healed out a face up card, not a face down. Um, what is your opinion on that? Also, me hitting another heal. Lol.
So I agree with it just because I don't remember what the face down card was, but the face up card was relevant to be in the drop zone, and a lot of the time, because you already have a full board set up, your that one counterblast isn't actually as relevant because you already have the three booster set up. That one counterblast isn't going to be as relevant as having that card available to you in the graveyard or in the drop zone.
Yeah. So here it's literally a battle of wits right now. It's also a battle of how many times can you just heal out a lethal.
Yeah, I had a lot of like because you started the lower in a roll persona right turn at 1 damage. It wasn't really like particularly threatening. It was a lot of pressure, but I don't really think you were at risk of dying there outside of niche scenarios. Right here, I see use the Zorga skill to get the bell back
And
and
I
recycle.
believe Bell will only
Um,
return 1 card because I only used Nightmare. Yeah, that should be one. Because I'm contemplating, should I swap? Wait, that's a 12, that's a 13. Nope. So here I use my own personal bread and butter, the draft check order plus Nightmare to return cards back. I feel that this is honestly the best order combo in the deck. It nets you, it puts 5 cards at the end of the turn pretty much. Triple drive plus 2 orders, and because I'm always gonna have dragons, it's always pressure, and since you're triple driving, it's gonna be a lot of damage.
yeah, so the order plus the triple drive order plus the order that lets you salvage really lets you draw the game out longer because you're just generating so many cards in your hand, and you're just was that not a triple drive there?
So I once again forget the triple drive. I always keep forgetting the triple drive. I'm such a good player.
We were just talking about how much advantage you generate, and you just decide to not do it in this
Hey
video.
man, so I just want to give the guy a break. I'll be honest, like I'm not used to triple driving yet, especially when you're playing a deck like Zorga. Yes, it's my main deck. Yes, I always play it, but I'll be real. I'm not perfect, and because I don't like to use markers to indicate a lot of things besides power, I tend to sometimes forget a lot of things.
Yes, but regardless of we're missing the triple drive, the front trigger really like forced a lot of pressure onto the Lorenorol player, and he went from a relatively sizable hand to to
4 cards.
4 cards at this point. With
Five, five with the order he just played. Yeah,
Yeah, but he does have the second
fractal.
fractal, so being able to being able to yet again restand a bunch of units is quite good. At this point, I don't know his hand makeup, but
Here I'm straight counting
he
triggers,
decides to use the Heart of Greed Girl to find more cards, and it looks like his deck is getting pretty thin.
which is why I'm
So
counting triggers actually.
yeah, so at this point, a lot of triggers were shown from the Lorenorol player. Obviously, a lot of heals on his side, and both players are still at 2. So the only truly threatening lane for Ken at this point, I think, is the Vanguard itself. The rear guards just keep poking for 1, easy to guard.
So here, actually, funny enough, as the game goes on, you can see I'm actually keeping a relatively healthy hand. It's not large by all means. Hell, I forgot an extra card, but I'm still able to keep, roughly 6, 7 cards in hand at all times. Against Lorenorol, who's always applying pressure, I risk a no guard here, which I don't get punished, but it's still 3 damage to my face. It it hurts a lot.
Yeah, and also the Lorna role player revealing a PG there means that at least one of these attacks is going to be blanked, and that's going to mean potentially uh, another turn of living from the Lorna role player.
Oh yeah. So
Because
here, hitting that top deck persona ride, y'all love to see it. Y'all love to feel it. um, this is one of my favorite plays to be honest. But before I completely potato, I go ahead and just counterblast the card out because maybe I hit a heal like this god of a man.
yeah, so right here you decide to
Uh,
reset the headhunters.
Yeah. Realistically, it doesn't matter because I'm still paying the same amount of counterblast for no reason, but it makes it more fancy.
Yep. Alchemy Magic with the Cheerful Malice. This the usually expensive draw 2 order is able to be reduced by a lot, and then functionally reduced by a lot more by the Cheerful Malice.
And I also get a counter charge back.
Mhm.
And I don't forget to draw. Ooh.
So right now, thanks to the Persona ride, these numbers are really threatening and actually probably likely to force out the PG that was revealed, just based on the makeup of the hand and the deck composition. Unless he
I'm,
just wants to face tank it, which at this stage of the game, running quite low on cards in his
I'm at
deck.
7 in hand, I think I counted on the fan.
So
43 to my 33.
so that's a one single trigger to pass, and you hit it. So
Except I think he said 2 to pass, so I'm like, okay. I just
oh,
believed him.
I see. Uh,
Hey man,
that's
brain no work.
Homie got free shield, a free extra 5k shield from there. PG discarding the. Uh,
Yeah, him discarding this red runner right now is actually very surprising.
yeah, I feel like the
I
red.
b I do believe that's a fractal in his hand though.
I see. So there's if that is a fractal in his hand, there should be the fourth fractal into damage. I still value the red here to apply that crit pressure. I guess you are at 5 at this point, and he'll value the multi swing.
And I'm not gonna lie right now, there is something big that's happening. And it's actually this guy's deck size. Because as the game progresses, and since he took 2 damage, he's actually losing a lot of cards in his deck. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna, yeah, I asked for it right here. Once again, try to count for triggers because he did drop a few to guard. So here I'm counting. I believe this is like 12 out, I believe.
And
Second
calling
last
out
I believe.
the second draw 2 discard girl,
Yeah,
uh,
the second Eknoa, yeah.
yeah, really I mean, it still swings for pressure. I'm hoping he doesn't activate the ability and run the risk of
One, two, three, four, five,
hitting
six, seven, eight. 8 cards in deck.
those. Yeah, single digit deck size. Oh, so he does choose to counterblast.
So here I'm just checking a lot of things, mainly the Persona ride, how much, because I understand he's trying to get cards to guard me with to live the next turn. But do you think this is playing to win or playing to live?
I feel like he was playing very much to not to die, and in doing so, means he's actually closer to dying with a realistic way of losing in decking out.
I am very proud of this moment right now. What's gonna happen? I'm not gonna lie. So he goes ahead and does his little play. He goes ahead and tries to be cute, but since that unit's not already standing, he doesn't get the power for it. Fractal actually has to stand the unit.
Yes,
So,
Fractal stands units and then gets power based on unit stand, but stands unit based on face down. So it doesn't give power based on face down
so
songs.
front trigger and OT, and I know his OT is already out. So this is essentially a no pass. So he goes ahead and hits a crit like a god, and he can't even play that Matter Runway. If he does, his Vanguard can attack. So here I'm checking cards in deck just to be sure.
Yeah, both players are running very low on deck size. Those early heals really dragged a game that should be 4 or 5 turns out longer than it had to be. But heals are part of the game.
So here I'm counting cards. I'm like, okay, I have 5 cards. I I don't persona right because that is suicide.
Yep. So just use the Zorga to get the fleet soul lore.
Now the question is, do I have an order to play?
Okay, so you choose to get the bell, and that is
Bell
oh,
should be seeing 4 cards or 3, I
it's a
believe.
very beefy card. This stage, there is 5 or 6 cards left in your deck,
I
Ken.
believe that is one, two, three, four, 6 cards. And
Yeah.
those that are looking or watching right now, I am counting for draw triggers because if I plan to do this play that I'm thinking of, I will need all the cards in my deck that I can.
So right here, the Lorenorol player is in a tight spot. Just being at 3 cards in deck and 4 damage means that
Vanguard can
uh,
attack.
your Vanguard can't attack if you take even one. And so effectively taking 1 damage means,
I mean, he can't even attack, period. He has to draw for turn.
yeah. So he just not being able to do what the deck needs to do to even gain numbers means he's swinging vanilla,
Which is very painful.
which is very awful considering he has no boosters on the board right now, and he's probably going to have to use boosters to guard if he doesn't want to take the damage.
I mean, Lorenorol's bane has always been boosters, let's be real.
Yeah, Lorenorol finally gets a new booster in the new set.
So here I decided to play a trigger and or PG to call over the dragon, and I of course play another order to get cards back. This is a 2 counterblast play, but it is GDR, which facilitates a Persona ride, as well as once again Nightmare to get cards back. Um, Funny enough, I technically just called the dragon to call the dragon. I call over it, honestly. Um, Part of this is flexing on the poor guy because what can you really do? Because those dragons just came back out to play.
Yeah, because you only play 2 of the prison dragons, you're gonna have to reset them the hard way sometimes.
Yeah, and then here I attack with Vanguard, knowing well enough that even hitting one draw does not kill me. and my opponent has to be able to guard everything. And if he doesn't, he has to deal with big numbers. And if I remember correctly, his PGs are gone. Or I think that's one in his hand still.
So yeah, the PGs are gone. The scaling shield is gone. So a lot of the relevant shield at this point is only in form of triggers. So and these numbers right now are a lot more threatening thanks to the grief, despair, and rejection being able to be a lot harder to guard. Oh, double Zorga from the drive checks.
Yeah, I think that is two PGs in his hand. If I can see that correctly.
So yep, PG discarding the red, and last one is a PG. Last card in hand. So at this point, the Lorenorol player is forced to only swing with rears. It does the Persona ride to, I
I
guess, to get the numbers to actually hit.
Honestly,
Uh,
it's kind of sad watching this though.
yeah. And because these are only 20k attackers with the booster, one is a 26, but overall, one trigger to guard each of these is enough.
I can finally use his PGs.
Yeah, and because there is no Lorenorol fractal order, you're able to actually Sentinel.
I mean, it's not even just fractal order. It's the fact that
Yeah,
Lord now
the
has to
Lorenorol
attack.
turns off PGs on swing, but uh,
Let's go. So round two, this is apologies for the glare peeps. This is Zorga versus Gravidia World. So here I open with one of my dragons, which is amazing. And
yeah,
I
that's a pretty good start.
but
So
unfortunately I have to go first, which I hate going first against this deck.
yeah, so Gravidia World and Zorga's early game plays somewhat similarly, where both players just want to apply pressure as early as possible. So because he searches with the grade one Rotus, I believe, he grabs the order that generates a token, and starting next turn, he's going to start swinging for 15k columns, similar to what Zorga will likely do in their respective turn.
So here he actually gets a meteor, which in my opinion is scary actually. I do a cheeky wanna pass and it works, so
Never punished. He decides to soul charge off of the first meteor, from what I saw,
yeah, I see that.
and I personally don't know how. I don't personally don't think you really soul charge with the meteors that often. You run the risk of decking out. Your soul isn't necessarily the biggest resource in this deck.
So here, and I'll tell you the reason why. This Gravidia World player specifically actually likes playing the grade 2 right chain in the main deck. And um, I'm not gonna try to be a spoiled sport, but I'll be honest. This game also leads to a deck out, and a reason why is the way this guy plays against me. So, as this game's going, he actually just calls token and swings. He doesn't really do anything about it. Um, him hitting that crit, and I hit double PG. This is something I don't want to see.
You are able to heal down the PG, so you're not at 3 damage. 2 damage, a little more manageable. But hitting that double PG really stings.
So here I do something I very rarely do, which you're about to see. It is something that people normally do with Zorga. Oh, and once again, he doesn't know what Zorga does. He's reading my card. So I go ahead and send. I'm just double checking to make sure. But I'm gonna go ahead and send a card out with with the dog just to Alchemy Magic it. However, what's gonna happen is um, what other Zorgas before watching this deck play or watching me play. This is something other Zorgas already do. I'm just usually a person that doesn't do it. Um, so here he goes for a funny type of shuffle or cut. Realistically, people, whenever you're shuffling someone's deck or you're cutting someone's deck, if it's not a single cut, it is by definition a shuffle. So with that, I do invoke quote unquote final cut rolls. This is just me being a scumbag because when this guy kind of approached everything, he was being a kind of a d-bag. So I go ahead and just do my turn, do my plays, and here I sort of messed up. I should have called my PG to the front rear guard. Um, that is my bad. I think I ask if I can, but I just say fuck it. I'm not gonna ask this guy for takebacks.
Oh yeah,
So
so I see. Yeah, so here you were could have called the dragon to or the PG to front row and bounced it
oh,
back with the
correct,
shadow cloak
and then call
and
Dragon to its now vacant
to its
spot.
to its now vacant slot. Yeah.
But I'm just nice because I just want to be tournament ready for this. So he goes ahead and does his things, and I add a PG to hand so he knows that. Um, I think this influenced his play a little bit, but in the end, triple driving here. And I believe I don't forget this time.
Nice. And the front trigger,
And
no
he
live heal, a
he hits a
non-active
heal,
heal.
but not it's not live, yeah. So most Gravidia players want their cards in hand, so they're not afraid to just take damage. Um, Funny enough, as I'm playing this guy, um, as any Vanguard player honestly um, will kind of get a feeling of, is when your opponent draws certain cards like their OT. So he goes ahead and does his turn. I believe he only has a 4 in hand. So he does his play. He goes for the meteors. Also, this bothers me when people like have their decks, upside down half the time.
Yeah,
I think whenever
that
this
is a
guy has shuffled his deck, there's like one card that's been upside down.
that is a form of marking. You have to make sure that the cards are all in the same direction.
So right now, if I just go based on hand size and card advantage, I'm ahead. He is 3 cards to my 6, I believe, or 7.
Yeah. In addition, while we were talking about earlier, Lorenorol and Zorga run orders, and those don't equal shield. Uh, Gravidia runs even like more dead shield because they're just play more orders as a whole. They have to see more. They
Yep.
tutor them out and deck thin for triggers later, but at this point of the game where he only took a handful of meteors out of the deck so far, it's not as threatening.
So right now, he has 2 doubles and 2 singles. He has enough for 5. But once again, because he didn't do anything yet, I preemptively did it, which is out of play order. I'm actually waiting for him to do something before I react, and this actually shocks me. So he goes ahead and just does 1.
He does one and decides to retire the Shadow Cloak. And he at this a single Gravidia when Gravidia Nordlinger eats one meteorite, it actually doesn't do anything. It
I mean, it's more power.
gains 1500 power and retires one unit, but doesn't really apply the pressure that you kind of want right now.
Exactly. Like, honestly, I think he should have went for 3 at minimum.
Yeah, three. And if because based on hand size, he probably could have even went in on five because the chance of uh like the hand size is not very good at guarding,
Yeah.
and potentially doubling triggers means the chance of getting,
I
I
mean, it's not
believe,
only that.
two potentially two live heals.
Like double trigger, honestly, also makes me lose the PG. But now since he
Yep.
didn't do it, I just keep the PG. And he did me a favor. He popped my dragon. Good guy, man. What a good guy.
Yeah. At that point, I probably just would have,
Has turn.
not attacked anything or swung under if he really wants to turn card sideways.
And those watching this, if you want to say, "Oh, I won because this guy's a bad player," um, do keep in mind still that I am, like even if he did that misplay, I'm considering a misplay. Watch how my personal hand keeps its hand size. Watch how I take, or kind of like take the flow of the game because right here I'm actually doing a vanilla turn. Persona Ride vanilla, no order. And I'll be honest, there was a time where I thought I'm going to lose this game. But realistically speaking, I'm here trying to not to die. Thankfully, I hit a heal here, which gives me a condensate. But no time during this game I actually was about to die. Like, there's no time I hit a 6 damage heal or OT to live. Here, my opponent is guarding for his life because he doesn't want to eat shit, to be honest. Um, and he's always keeping his hand size low because I'm pressuring him. I'm accurately pressuring him.
Yeah, so the reason why Zorga is able to do what Zorga does is because you're able to apply pressure with minimal resources committed. And this Gravidia world player has been kind of throwing a lot of resources uh, like to try to match the pressure, which is in turn, while his hand's getting ripped through by Ken's pressure with shield, Gravidia player also has to get his hand ripped through by playing cards itself.
Like, a reason Gravidia is able to keep cards, to be honest, though, is normally they do from Nordlinger's Ride the double single draw. Um,
Yes, the double draw is allowed, double single draw, and you mainly just if you have to draw a meteor, you want to draw the grade two meteor more than the grade ones, of course.
yeah, and also
So
another thing is this man, since he opted out of the first draw, he's actually losing cards, on the first ride, and I believe that's actually the most paramount turn that he wants to draw. I did ask this man later why didn't he opt to do double draw. His response once was kind of silly. His response was, "Oh, because I don't want to draw my triggers."
that's pretty. At this point, I feel like drawing triggers is how you not how you don't die, and he still chooses to soul charge, which is
It's because
uh
he's playing the grade 2 red line. He needs soul for it.
yes, but if he's like talking about not wanting to draw his trigger, soul charging the triggers just is even worse, you know.
Yeah.
And the same cards that you would have drawn are showing in your trigger in your soul charge instead.
So here, it was news to me that this card actually is a 20k beater on the rear. The turn you use his ability. So right now he's contemplating how many meters to go. He's also probably thinking, what the hell? Why is Zorga, winning round one? Why am I playing Zorga round two? What the hell is the shop? He goes ahead and goes for the 5 meteor play with 3 singles and a double, which at this point prompts my PG. Like, there's no world where I just don't do this. Now, I would die to an OT here. Thankfully, he doesn't, but he hits double heal.
Yep, double heal trigger. That really puts him back or like out of or really like out of lethal range outside of or now that he has somewhat sizable hand, like healthy, not like, you know, you're not intimidated by the hand, but it's something that can realistically live through some of Zorga's turns,
Yep.
especially at 3 damage.
So he goes ahead and swings for a big boy number. I just go ahead and drop a crit plus the order, and I go ahead and take the last damage. Well, so he was contemplating not attacking, which was kind of funny. I was about to take the last damage, but he just kind of stood there. So I know I saw the card. Yes, I can guard it. I would have loved to see that card in my hand, but because I had already taken declared that I would take the hit, I honor, I believe. If not, call me a scumbag. I just guard it. So I'm just kind of trying to think of my play, because it is guardable in my hand. I believe this is a 15, 40k, but I just take the hit. Go ahead and draw, and I'm trying to find a play out. Man literally just double healed on me.
Yep,
Yikes.
all that work. So
And literally,
single rear guard.
yeah, that's how bad that turn is. So on the bright side, he actually has no more orders, I believe, or he has one meteor. So unless he throws down a barcode, I am actually safe. Like, hey,
And the Gravidia's rear guards being 15k also means that like a turn, like a vanilla turn like that, means the Gravidia player effectively keeps hand,
yep.
which is pretty annoying at this stage. At least for the Zorga player. For the Gravidia player, you're very happy that like you have 15k rears on defense and you your opponent can't hit into him.
So he actually just goes into vanilla attack. He mirrored my vanilla attack with his vanilla attack.
What a homie.
So here I'm contemplating I can take the hit or I can just say front trigger for 2 to pass. And he goes ahead and shows me a critical, which thankfully I didn't see no guard.
Yep, that's very much lethal if he said no guard.
So he's actually throwing me a bone by attacking with the non-lethal one first. Because this gives me a chance to trigger.
Yeah, this gives a chance to trigger without it killing him. So there is no trigger, but if that was a trigger, it would have potentially made guards easier.
So those watching, never ever attack with non-lethal first. Always go for lethal. Go for the throat. Um, do the non-lethal attack later because you can choose whether or not you want it to actually hit or not. So here I go for the Rogue Headhunter, and I can finally play an order from my hand. It's just now a matter of what or how am I playing it. Because I'm contemplating whether or not it's worth it. Just like any other good Vanguard player, you want to calculate your plays. And
As it
also,
stands right now, Gravidia World Player has like the biggest hand he's had all game.
yep,
So
and the
it's
biggest advantage.
and at like pretty healthy damage. So with a deck full of triggers on top of that, at this point, it's like how do you maximize value is what Ken's like, or maximize pressure, value, all of the above.
So here I'm going for the triple drive order plus the salvage 2. I am gonna be I should be being a good player and ditch an order, but yeah, there's the
Yep.
ditch.
Discarding the order that you, I believe, don't have the cost to pay.
I do not have soul. If I had it, I
Yeah.
would love to play it.
So now you're swinging with the Zorga for 13 with triple drive.
Correct. So now he's asking for my trigger count. There is one crit there in damage, I believe. Yeah. Is that no, the second one's not a crit?
It should be a heal on a crit.
No, that's And on my damage, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
he
he
goes ahead
goes
for
two
a
to
two to pass
pass
on a triple
here
drive.
on a triple drive.
But he's still contemplating whether or not he wants to be two to pass. He goes ahead and just goes for the intercept, which is a 25k shield, so three to pass. I hit a heal, thank the Lord.
Mhm.
So
Heal and draw.
hitting the draw here does help me stabilize, thankfully. Um,
Yeah,
this is a 15k attack. Thanks for the innate ability of this unit.
yeah, and thanks
And
to that triple drive, you're able to get over what is it? Over 30k in shield, 30k or more in shield from that one drive check,
oh yeah,
which definitely helps a three attack deck like against a three attack deck like Gravidia.
I mean I'm also a three attack deck.
Yes.
So now this man has Barbacoa in his hand. He's able to pop off as we see it in the corner of his hand. So he goes ahead and drops a 15 for some reason, even though this is way more.
It's a pretty so he guards with 40k, goes up to 53.
Yeah, that was enough, I believe, because I hit two triggers, 48.
Hit two triggers. Yep, 48. Because no persona ride, no grief, despair, and rejection. That's
Yep, it's an average day. So here
yep.
I'm actually counting his triggers, because the state that the game is going, it's honestly going very back and forth. I'm counting triggers, but actually, around this point in time, I am 90% certain he has drawn his OT.
Yeah, with a deck as thin as that, with as many cards as he's like thinned through his deck, uh,
I think that was a
it's
5 card deck.
a 5 card deck. A lot of it was soul charged because of the meteors,
Like,
and the
how do
thing
you
about
cut this?
yeah, the thing about the grade 2 ride line card, soul blasting 3 and drawing 1 card, for the 5k, he could get similar value by just drawing the card off of the Nordlinger,
Yeah,
and
honestly. So
because you soul blasting 3, so that's 3 meteors you have to commit to soul charge to get 1 card. That's 4 cards for 1 card in your hand compared to 2 cards from your deck and 2 cards in your hand for
here he
just
goes
using it off
for
of the.
the 5 meteor play again. And because Barbacoa did that damage, I am actually in a very tight situation. I have to actually hope that Barbacoa he doesn't hit the OT actually. So he doesn't hit the OT here, thankfully. I am in a slightly more healthy situation now that he has a 3 card to hand, or 3 card deck.
Yeah, and again, he's swinging. He's
Non-lethal
swinging.
first, but I'm also still trying to see how much damage that is. I hit a front, which helps.
Defensive there definitely really helps preserve that hand.
22, 22, 42, 52 to his, I believe that is less than 50k.
Yep, and with the Baku Burrito, uh, I believe having crit right on attack, like it just kind of meant that he gave you an out to guard more easily with that front trigger.
So here I go for the pot of greed order. It is normally considered suicide to do this when I'm also in a deck state that has low cards, but realistically speaking, it called for it. I needed the cards because if I'm able to grind him out, this is the way I grind him.
Yep, realistically, that hand is really hard to punch through in the state of what's been happening to Ken in this game. Like, not a lot of pressure can be applied. Like, it's like decent pressure, not like threatening pressure. So, because that Fleet Swallower is, swinging for without the skill to Soul Blast,
Rip
right?
soul. Yeah, rip my soul. I am going for broke though, as I'm trying to do as much as I can with Zorga with as limited resources that I have. This is, I believe, GDR'd, right? Yeah,
Yeah, you alchemy magic something.
it was GDR, I believe. I told guard me, show me your OT. And funny enough, during this conversation, he was like, "What OT? There was no OT in my hand." I'm like, "Bruh, you're literally at three cards. You either show me your OT now or you die when you drive check it." So this is a 28 38 38k dragon with a trigger, so 48k. He wants to be cheeky still, saying I don't have the OT. And then I go ahead and swing here. And this is a once again a sizable number because Bell saw three cards. So 22, 32 plus trigger 42 shows me OT. Like,
Yep. If OT wasn't showing, he would have just still like decked out. And at this
right.
point, he actually has to just swing with rears and hope something sticks.
Here's the issue about Gravidia. Without her abilities, Gravidia can't do any plays. And now that he's pretty much a vanilla deck, I have all the answers to the world. So here, I'm able to Persona Ride. I have a three card deck, which means, guess I'm not attacking with Vanguard. However, thankfully, because I am a Zorga deck, I have free rear guards.
Yeah, and then you're going to Shadow Cloak search your deck for up to 0 orders, and
Soul Body Condensate with GDR.
that's the classic Zorga play from set 1.
Call that Rogue Hunter from Condensate and call that Dragon.
Called Double Dragon.
So I Persona Road. So this is a 48k Dragon.
Yep. So pretty much that Gravidio world player played in a way where he valued the grade 2 ride line, it's 5k power more than cards in hand, and by that logic cards in deck too, because he was just converting a lot of cards in deck into single cards in hand and 5k power. And sometimes the 5k power is relevant, but in doing the soul charges, in opting not to draw, trying to dodge triggers, kind of like defeats the purpose of not trying to draw triggers if you're soul charging,
Oh
right?
yeah. All right. So 3, 2, 1. Go ahead. So this is the round three and the final round of the tournament. Now this is Rena versus Zorga. And honestly, what is your opinion on this matchup?
So after playing, this matchup a lot, Nirvana is pretty popular deck. I feel like it depends on how what build they go for. If they're going with the prayer build um, of Nirvana, it's very much a deck that wants to do like a pseudo combo turn that doesn't actually net you any advantage outside of breaking even, but you can keep going and potentially pump your Vanguard big. And that, I feel, is the only threat the deck actually has to Zorga's later turns of just looping units over and over again. And on top of that, the deck is Virina is relatively fragile, but in most stages of the game because of the kind of cards you have to play to make the prayer build work, being the prayers, the Virina grade 3s and 4s, and just overall the pressure that Zorga applies from turn 2, like Ken's doing right here, just means that like you don't actually have the tools to guard the stuff early.
Can we just talk about real quick? The poor man just lost double Verenas.
Yeah, so the guy lost double of Irina. It's really unfortunate. Most decks play 2 or even 1 of the grade 2 Virina, and seeing that hit into damage means like half or all of your Virinas are gone unless you're really spicy, and that just should be applying like a little bit of pressure.
So
That's
here he
mentally.
drove checked the salvager, which hopefully if he hits a heal, the man can actually play the game.
Yep. And also hitting that Valiente is definitely one of the overdress units that you want to see when you prayer, just so you it's because it stacks on top of other Valientes. It's just one of those good stacking units that
I mean, not
can
even
apply
just
pressure.
Stack Valiente. You can actually re-overdress it on top of Esperadidea.
Yep.
So here I opt for a double dog, but something I normally don't do, which is put a dog in the back row. Now, reason for this is because I actually want, knowing that he's prayer build, I want to shove his damage or shove damage in. So because I added a nightmare to hand, I call it nightmare. I know it's called something else, but I just call it nightmare. Um, because I have the nightmare to salvage two, I am able to get the dragon out, which is now 18k with a crit. He can either choose to damage because he's prayer build, which he does here, and yikes. Oh.
Yikes. And right here, he hits both a Prayer and a Mahar Nirvana. Those are obviously things that you need for the deck to work.
He is a brave soul, and he's a double Mahar.
And he actually opts to take the faith damage. Happens to be in Mahar. It's unfortunate.
So here now, I think I did talk to this man during the game, saying, "Hey man, you want damage, right? I got you." I didn't
Yeah,
expect him to no card the crit still.
I feel like as a Prayer Nirvana build, you might not want to go to 5 damage on the second turn. Most decks don't, but I also don't feel like I feel like there was a realistic way you can guard some of those attack, like two of those attack rather than just the one.
Yeah, I think he should have just gone to 3 damage, realistically speaking.
Gone to three, yeah, he should have just gone to 3 damage. Means he has like ignoring the cards that he would have drawn. Means just because he is a turn 4 deck, he doesn't actually start applying or like relevant pressure outside of the prayer somewhat, and then Mahar Nirvana, and you don't want time to do those, especially in a deck with without like shield, without cards that get you there.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, to be honest. Now, here he goes for the best opening of the prayer combo, which is prayer into arcs. Now you want to try to draw out of the 3 cards you're drawing here. You want to draw an overdress unit, and you just want to keep chaining overdress units. Now, if you ever see in second arcs, that's perfect. But unfortunately, the man here, I believe he drew triple trigger. And lastly, a Mahar. So on the bright side, he found his Mahar.
Yep, with only 2 Mahars, like that can be left in the deck. He found found half of them, and then he did draw triggers, which is the only form of relevant shield because in most builds of the prayer deck. So he only is able to give 10k to the Nirvana thanks to the prayer
Yeah,
because he
so
only overdressed
here I still
twice.
no guard. He does drive check a PG. Chat, or I guess people watching this, please don't flame the guy for running TDPGs. Realistically speaking, they are the same as BT1's PGs, just they don't have the extra ability of being free if you have 2 or less cards in hand when you use them. Now, I do hit a defensive draw here, which I finally hit a defensive after 3 painful games today.
Yeah, hitting that defensive draw, especially it being a draw trigger, like just might just smooth things out even more than. Oh, not that you need it at this point.
Yeah. So right here I have a triple dog. Those that follow this channel's videos know that I only run 3. Now I go ahead and mill the GDR out, and now I have perfect setup for Unga Bunga turn.
Yep, the amount of pressure that's going to be generated by like just the triple shadow cloak helping you out with smoothing out the deck. So many non-triggers just got removed from the deck by this upcoming line of play.
And now I target double headhunter and my Zorga for the GDR, as well as I prime my two dragons. But this being Vanguard, I get to activate my orders in any order I want, or my abilities. So I go ahead and bounce my first dog and my second dog. A bounces B, C bounces B, or C bounces A.
Yep,
And I
and he
go ahead.
decides,
I
and you
drop
smell
dogs A
he
and
dogs
C.
more.
Hey man, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Limited Foolish Burial to 1, there has to be a reason why, right?
Yep, especially now with the triple drive order removing so many non-trigger cards out of your deck. Like that's just a lot of pressure, and your opponent hasn't even your opponent hasn't even seen like you know any triggers happened yet.
Exactly. Like, besides that draw trigger, he's actually not in a good spot. So, these dragons are currently 15 plus 23. They're 38 Ks. These numbers are not what you want to hear early game, especially when you just started playing your combo part of the deck. So with the
Yep.
triple drive, there is a draw here, which makes one dragon a 48k, and a second trigger, which makes the other dragon a 48k as well. Yikes.
Yep. So 48 and 48 with without with being at 5 heal chances are really low, but and also with the deck like prayer build with the prayer build where you actually don't have shield most of the game. If you happen to have any overdress units in your, or like most overdress units in your hand are not relevant shield, so you have to rely on triggers. And 48 is not a number that you want to deal with just triggers.
Yeah. Like, this hand is actually perfectly guardable without hitting double trigger. But since I did, unfortunately, this happened. Now, this game will be getting cut short because of the camera. However, TLDR, as I'm explaining to this man, if you're gonna take a hit and you can only take, if you are gonna take a hit and you can only guard one attack and they're both attacking for the same amount of damage, you would take the first hit. Because if you hit defenses, if you hit heal, like in this situation, he has to hit double heal or heal OT, and that's the only way he wins. Now, because the video did get cut off short, the outcome was that I did win. But if you are going to take a hit, you should take the first one just so to see if you can hit the trigger. It lets you guard, it lets you, or guard easier, it lets you survive. And if you guarded and then survived the hit, you wasted your cards for no reason, realistically speaking.
Yeah, that because no matter what, if you're gonna be relying on heal trigger or over trigger to control like whether you live or die at that point, it's always gonna give power to your vanguard. It's always gonna have some amount of power, and that always means some amount of shield that you would have committed is not necessary anymore. And extra cards in your hand can mean a lot going into a turn where you might have just had to commit everything to guard with. Like that extra 2 cards might mean the difference of like the number threshold to kill your opponent.
Yep, and go. So this is a bonus round. It's not part of the tournament, but you know, I'm pretty sure y'all are gonna get bored of watching Zorga every week. It is fun to watch me open Nutty and just pop off. Now this is a V Premium match. This is Grand Blue versus Spike Brothers. Corey, as a person that plays Grand Blue, what do you think about this certain matchup?
So I feel like against most force decks, ground blue, or against most decks in general, like force, and then any deck that just tries to overwhelm with big numbers, uh, ground blue has a really good time that's able to recycle everything that it needs. So if you're playing, you can bring back PGs thanks to Greed Shade. It could bring back Trigger Shield with Greed Shade. it can just generate a lot of value without having to commit things because one card becomes two cards, similar to Zorga. And then Spike Brothers has a relatively honest game plan. Like Rising Nova giving the double markers is really the main thing that makes the deck like go. But that being said, even with a lot of resources, Spike Brothers is able, if it's able to commit to make numbers that force PGs every time, it can actually start trading through hand pretty fast. But it has to get to that point of like potentially riding Rising Nova twice, or like having enough Dudleys to gain that power to get there.
So here I go ahead and mill Greed Shade. I just add back the Negerbone that I discarded and play Jesse. So honestly, as any Grand Blue aficionado or main or player, whatever you want to name yourself, Jesse is just busted. Jesse gives you so much for so little, and on to top it off, he is free. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what the
Jesse
negative.
early game just swings for relevant number, gets you resources back, especially when you Columbarded. It can come back later if you need it. It's just kind of does everything.
So here, I don't agree with the man saying 10k to his Vanguard. I understand normally when you have these heal guardians, you want to be tempted to use it first. However, you can still get punished. That's the thing. Now the man is only 18. I do hit a heal here, but he thought it was a crit. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't agree with Heal Guardian on turn one, especially when your opponent's just attacking three times. The numbers are like somewhat threatening, but not anything that like a normal trigger shouldn't be able to guard. And getting like I feel like saving that, especially when you're going second, saving that for the upcoming Night Rose turn that was like shown because Night Rose was revealed going in
Yep.
means just could mean the difference of life and death. And here, the Spike Brothers player is going very ham, uh, calling a lot of cards. And yeah, while Spike Brothers is able to accrue a board with like minimal investment, he's still investing some amount of cards in his hand, on top of having to use the Heal Guardian earlier.
So he goes ahead, and I honestly think this man is trying to dig for his Rising Nova. Um, Realistically speaking, if you put yourself in a bad spot, would you add that grade 3 heal that was revealed?
I honest, I while I don't know the makeup of his hand, I probably would just because you are already at 2 damage. Your opponent's at 0. You probably want some, and you know that your opponent's gonna Night Rose you, and because of what he's done so far, there's no way he's not giving you a damage at this point. Like so it's not even like the Night Rose is gonna happen.
So
So
here
it's
he goes ahead for a turn that essentially says one trigger stops most of me. I do hit the one trigger. He hits a bull spike. So I just go ahead and I hit a second trigger, and I'm just like, yikes.
yeah. So with Dudley's uh, committing as many cards as he did early, uh, might just be a way to like say I need to keep up with pressure. But overall, like the deck is pretty piece reliant, and calling out your pieces early to and then getting it blanked just means like you're kind of not doing anything next turn if any of it gets answered, or and also you're just giving up shield because Acrobat Verdi was a 10k shield that found nothing that could have found potential more shield that he gave up.
So I know you said mentioned earlier that Ground Blue is a deck that should go Protect 1, but here I opt for Protect 2. My reasoning is that Ghost Ship with Protect 2 actually hits 34, which if you're running a vanilla heal, hits past the heal trigger, and normally you're going to be grade 3 anyways by the time I start rolling, so heal guardians are actually null. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so going Protect 2 at this point just means your numbers actually hit like breakpoints. It's a mini Force 1 in your instance. You kind of just ignore the intercept skill or the 5k shield, and then this way you also have scale. This can let you have a little bit better scaling numbers because like Greed Shade, if you're forced to call something like Greed Shade or Columbard to as attackers, getting that extra 5k on those columns can actually mean the extra card ripped out, especially with 10k grade ones. That's extra 10k potentially that you have to remove if they don't have grade twos, and then beyond that, because you're doing this boat plus Columbard and Banshee, uh, you're just actually swinging for that 30, that magical nice 34. And this is where I really wish that the Spike Brothers player kept the Heel Guardian, because that actually, like, the Heel Guardian at this point probably would have helped uh, stabilize at least a little bit.
So here the man is upset that I hit a double crit on him when he said, "Oh wow, look at all these triggers." But realistically speaking, I drew most of my triggers. Like, but the rest of my deck is generally clean. Like I just milled like 2 clean each time.
Yeah, so the Spike Brothers player committing that Heel Guardian turn one, and then or turn well, on your grade two turn, and then also neglecting to grab the heal trigger off of the Acrobat Verde. Like if he was able to double Heal Guardian that turn, he was probably living through it. Like, and because just that's 30k Vanguard, a lot of that stuff is easy to guard at that point.
Alright, so that concludes the games for this week. Casey, this is KCTG, Ken, and Corey signing off. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.